This episode of Distraction is sponsored by Landmark College in Putney, Vermont, where targeted strategies and individualized personal development models help students to become their own advocates. Learn more at lcdistraction.org. Landmark College. Learn your way. Succeed uniquely.
When you're ADHD, you do things that everyone thinks are insane, and screw them. Who cares? You know, if they work for you, who cares?
Hello, this is Dr. Ned Hallowell for Distraction. Today is a special day in our podcast because we have one of my true friends, mentors, really pioneers in the field, one of the people who's doing a lot to break down the old ossified, deficit-based model of ADHD and really just almost single-handedly just tearing that apart with his usual enthusiastic style, just going at it like gangbusters. And Peter Shankman is his name. He's created a dynamite podcast himself called Faster Than Normal. He's written a fantastic book called Faster Than Normal. He really embodies all the best of ADHD. When I first met him, he came to my office in New York, and it was like a white tornado. He just tore around the office, literally, figuratively, and it's not just that he's a phenomenon, but the work he's doing is, and if I can just on a serious note, because I'm sure we'll have a lot of laughs together as well, you know, it is so important that we dismantle this stigmatizing deficit-based model that we, you know, it's a lot better than the old moral model, which you were bad if you had ADHD. Then we replaced it with a medical model and said, no, you've got a disorder, you've got a disease, you've got a disability. And, you know, that was better than the moral model. But it problem was you just walked around saying, okay, I'm crippled. I've got this disability. And people like Peter, you know, have come in and said, no, if you manage this right, it's an asset. And he's really done so much at the grassroots level. And it's what we really need, you know, to say, look, sure, there are downsides to this condition, but boy, oh boy, is there ever an upside if you learn to manage it right. So it is with great pleasure and great pride that I welcome my friend, colleague, and man I admire tremendously, Peter Shankman, the creator of Faster Than Normal podcast and the great book Faster Than Normal. Welcome, Peter.
Oh, my God, Dr. Hallowell, I don't even know how to begin to respond to an introduction like that. Thank you so much. You are a hero of mine, and the work that you are doing has helped me and thousands, if not tens or hundreds of thousands of people understand what they have and understand how to use it. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Peter. Our producer, Sarah, said, well, now, what are you going to talk about? I said, I don't know, but I don't think that'll be a problem. So
that usually tends to work itself out when you and I talk, I believe.
Why don't I just ask you, so what are you up to these days?
Well, the book came out about almost a month ago now. It's doing very, very well. You know, it's exciting the emails that I'm getting. You know, my first 4 books were business books, and they help businesses, and that's great. But, you know, the emails I'm getting about this book, about people who have been reading it, and I mean, it's a game changer. It's like nothing I've ever experienced before, that people are emailing me, and they're thanking me, and they're saying, you know, for the first time, I feel like I'm not alone, and I feel like I found my kindred spirit, and I'm not broken, and you know, not a day goes by where I don't feel like I'm crying. It's just such an amazing feeling. And, you know, I think that slowly I'm starting to pivot a little bit from my business roots of, you know, marketing and PR and customer service. I'm still doing that, but I'm talking more and more about ADHD and about self-care. You know, I come from the entrepreneurial side of things, and you have all these entrepreneurs, the majority of whom have ADD and ADHD, who have never really looked at sort of considering themselves a project as well. Right. You know, we as entrepreneurs, we tend to, and especially as ADHD, we tend to work really, really well taking care of others. Okay, I have that thing that's due at 4 p.m. for that client. I'll get that done. You know, and we focus on that. And a lot of times that's at the expense of ourselves. Right. And so I'm starting to talk about that a little more too. And I'm sort of including that in the business talks I give. So it's, you know, I hope I'm doing a little good. I joke that I have a 4-year-old daughter who loves Thomas and Friends, the little train cartoon, and the whole thing about Thomas and Friends is their job, what they want to do. They know they've done a good day's work when their boss says that they've been really useful.
Yes.
Right? And so that's my thing. I want to be like Thomas. I want to be really useful.
Well, there's absolutely no doubt you're incredibly useful. Could you tell us just your personal story? How did you come to this point in your life? You're how old now, Peter?
I am 45. So I was never diagnosed as a kid. In the 80s, in the 70s and 80s, I didn't have ADHD. I had to sit down and disrupt in the classes.
So you went through normal schooling?
Yep, public school kid in New York City, the whole thing. And when I was and I always knew I was different. I remember qualifying for extra time and all the tests and things like that, but it wasn't ADHD. It wasn't ADD. It was nothing like that. It was a learning disability, open-ended. And I remember in my mid-30s.
So you went through school and college with no...
School, college, my first job. And, what I realized is all the things that I was doing, which everyone thought was crazy, which I thought was crazy, going out on my own at age 24, starting my own company,
really?
Skydiving, marathon running, all those things I realized weren't so crazy. They were simply me subconsciously finding ways to self-medicate, to get that dopamine, that serotonin, that adrenaline, all the stuff that I needed, that I didn't know I needed at the time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until 2006, so I was about 34, I guess, 2007, 35, I'm sitting in my therapist's office, and he literally throws a book at me, and he says, "You read this. I want you." I don't know if other people have therapists that throw things at them, if that's just me, but he literally threw a book at me, landed as a thud in my stomach, and I looked at it, and it was Delivered from Distraction. And I remember I left his office, and I took the book out, and I thought, "Oh, great, I read a book now." I was on the N train from 8th Street back to 57th Street, and the very first paragraph. And I've committed it to memory. It's on my profile of my Facebook page. Having ADHD is paradoxical. You can feel as confident as anything, and you feel like you can't accomplish a thing. You could feel as, you could do a million things, and you're insecure as a cat in a kennel. And I remember looking up and realizing, okay, I'm crying on the N train. This is a problem. Yeah. And it really, that was the first time I ever read something from someone who got me.
Wow. So it was the shock of recognition, as they say.
I really was. And over time, what I realized as I read your book and as I read others and then eventually as I met you, I realized that all the things that I was doing without realizing it to self-medicate.
Right.
My parents could never understand, where does this entrepreneurial... My parents were teachers, right? They don't say, where's this entrepreneurial thing coming from? Skydiving? What the hell? We didn't even speed. Like,
who's this wild man?
Exactly. They kept asking that question, and that's really, I realize it now. And I'm fortunate that I was able to go on sort of the positive side of that, as opposed to the negative side, which could have been illegal drugs or whatever the case.
And how did that happen? I mean, how did you end up on the positive side?
It's funny. I think it happened in two ways. Number one, I had very good parents who were very caring and who I didn't, who I looked up to, and I listened to them, and they, I did the right thing. I didn't even try alcohol until I was in college, and I think also, though, I was kind of a wuss. I think I was afraid to do anything negative or anything that could have been considered wrong or dangerous or illegal. I don't have any history of anything like that. And so I think, I was fortunate in both those ways.
So you wanted to play by the rules?
I think I did, yeah. And I think that, there was probably a part of me that found that very frustrating because when you're 17, 18, you're not supposed to be playing by the rules, you're supposed to be rebelling.
Right, right.
And I didn't know how to do that.
So luckily you embraced structure instead of rejecting it.
I did. I embraced structure. What's interesting is I didn't realize I was embracing structure because for me, in college I was up all night. I was up till 5 a.m. and I was always last minute with all my assignments and everything like that. And it wasn't until I started realizing what was going on with my brain that I realized the concept of, getting a good night's sleep. I never slept enough, probably not until about 4 or 5 years ago. And I realized that was the point where it really had to matter. And once I started making those changes, everything sort of clicked at that point.
Did you ever have a normal job?
I had one normal job, but even that wasn't normal. I worked for America Online in the mid-'90s, back when AOL sort of was the Internet, and they didn't care how we worked as long as we got our jobs done. And so for me, that was perfect.
Sure.
Then, I leave AOL, I come back to New York City, and I get my second job where I think I'm working for a magazine. and all of a sudden, what do you mean I have to be in by 8:30 and at my desk? What do you mean I get 45 minutes for lunch at this time? What is this, Russia? It was it was not an okay scenario. And I remember I went on my own. I said, okay, I'm going to start this company. And
okay, well, let me just stop you right there. People are listening. I went out on my own and I started this company. You say that the words trip off your tongue. That's not so easy to do. So where did you say you're a wuss? Where did you get the intestinal fortitude to do that?
Because I knew that I wasn't happy working for someone else. I knew that I wasn't happy working in a corporation. And I didn't know what I could do, but I had a feeling that I could figure something out that would be better. And the funny thing is that I was so scared that I wouldn't be able to do it. I actually said to myself, I said, okay, I'm going to start this company, and when it doesn't work, not if it doesn't work, I literally said, when it doesn't work, I'll quit and I'll get a real job again. And it's been 19 years this past October, and I haven't had to get a real job.
So you were sort of driven by the fear of having to go back and get a real job.
Either that or having to, not being able to make my rent and having to move back in with my parents. Yeah.
So what was the first business that you started?
So I launched a public relations firm.
Wow.
And
you just said, hi, I'm Peter Shankman.
It sounds really exciting, but no, it was me in my apartment, with like two clients who were covering, between the two of them, I'd cover my rent and I'd have a few bucks for food.
Yeah.
And then, but it kept going and I kept getting new clients and more clients. And next thing I knew, I had 5-6 clients. I had to get someone to work for me. All of a sudden we had an office and, it was amazing.
So you were single at the time.
Yeah, I was single at the time. I was early 20s. It was a good time to do that.
Yeah.
But again, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was doing wrong. I didn't know what was right or wrong. I just knew, I basically went in with this logic that's helped me and supported me very well over the course of my life. I'm going to go in and I'm going to do something. Mm-hmm. If it works, I'm going to do it again. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't work, I'm not going to do it again.
Mm-hmm. That's a good idea. Yeah, yeah. And so you found in PR certain things that worked.
Yeah, I found that I knew how to talk to people.
Yeah.
I knew how to schmooze. I knew how to tell a story. I was a great storyteller.
Yeah.
And all of these things, fit for public relations.
Yeah.
The funny thing was, what I didn't realize at the time, was that I was terrible at managing people. And unfortunately, when you're growing a company, you kind of have to manage people. And so 3 years after I started the PR firm, I sold it because, my next job was I either had to hire like 10 people to grow the agency, or I could walk away with a few bucks that I made. I did that.
But you grew it big enough to sell it.
Exactly. So I had about 10 employees. And the problem was that I was, every single day I was not enjoying the fun part of PR.
Right.
It was becoming more about managing people. And that's what I think the first time I realized that I was terrible at managing people. And I'm glad I learned that lesson, because when my 2 companies later, the big one that blew up for me, Help a Reporter Out, my options were I could have grown it. I had an opportunity to sell it for a really decent sales price. And, by any standards, everyone would have been really happy. If I had kept it and run it for another 10 years, I probably could have 10x that amount of money, but that would have been 10 years where I wouldn't have been happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I learned very early on, one of the things about ADHD is that we tend to do really well the things that we're happy with. We tend to do really well the things that we love doing.
Yes.
We tend to do really badly the things that we don't love doing.
Yes. And you were strong enough to obey that voice instead of sort of taking the safe way.
Yeah, because in my head, that was the safe way, because I'm like, I'm going to sell it. I'm going to let other people who do manage better do it, and I'm not going to be greedy. I'm very happy with what I've done here.
So you sold that. How did you get into writing books?
So the book started because I have a blog. I've always liked to write. Writing, I've always loved, because when I'm writing, that's sort of I call it my zone of focus. Right? I get onto a plane. I sit down. I turn my laptop on. I start writing when we take off. I don't stop writing until we land.
Now, just slow down for a minute, because you've told me this before, and I want our listeners to listen to this. This is unique. I've never, ever heard a writer describe this process as a way of writing a book. So, Peter, go ahead. Say it again.
So my last book before Faster Than Normal was a book called Zombie Loyalist. And I had 6 months to write it. The publisher gave me 6 months. I had 2 weeks before it was due. I'd done all the research, but I hadn't written a word. And so the publisher called me. She's like, "Hey, how's it going?" I'm like, "Oh, that's great. No problem. I'll be done soon." Complete lie. I hung up the phone. I called United Airlines, or I went to United Airlines website. I booked a round-trip business class ticket to Tokyo and back, leaving the next day. I wrote chapters 1 through 5 on the flight to Tokyo. I landed in Tokyo. I went to the lounge. I cleared immigration. I went outside. I took a breath of fresh air. I walked back inside. I went to the lounge. I grabbed a cup of coffee. Got back 2 hours later on the same plane, same seat, and wrote chapters 6 through 10 on the flight home, and landed, 31 hours later with a book. And everyone thought that I was insane. Why would you spend $5,000 not to go anywhere? I'm like, no, you don't understand. I spent $5,000 to write a best-selling book. And, when you're ADHD, you do things that everyone thinks are insane, and screw them. Who cares? If they work for you, who cares? Absolutely.
That's brilliant. I mean, you just knew what would work, and so you did it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And this Faster Than Normal is what number book for you?
This is Faster Than Normal is number 5.
But
it's the first non-business book I've written.
It's the first non-business book, and it's all about how to get the most out of life if you happen to have this trait, as I like to call it, that is so misleadingly called ADHD.
It's so true. And, I always say to people that, I am gifted with ADHD. I'm not cursed.
Yeah.
And I'm not diagnosed. You don't get diagnosed with winning the lottery.
But at the same time, I think we would both agree, if you don't learn how to manage this condition properly, it can be pretty horrible.
Well, you're 100% right. And because of that, I have rules and I have rituals that simply must be followed, or else I have a bad day. My alarm goes off around 3:45, 4 a.m. every morning.
Wow.
I am at the gym, or I'm on my bike, or I'm running immediately after I wake up. I sleep in my gym clothes to prevent myself from going back to sleep. Wow. I get up, I work out, I do at least an hour. This morning I did a 25-minute run and then an hour of lifting weights. And, that in itself sets my brain chemistry for the day. Mm-hmm. I have two sides to my closet. One side, they're labeled. One side says office/travel, and it's full of T-shirts and jeans. And the other side says speaking/television, and it's full of button-down shirt jackets and jeans. And that's it. I don't have, all my vests, all my sweaters, my suits. They're all in a different closet in a different room. Because if I looked at them in the morning, oh, my God, that sweater. I remember that sweater. Laura gave me that sweater. I wonder how she's doing. I should look her up on Facebook. It's 3 hours later. I'm naked in the living room on Facebook, and I haven't left the house.
And you have a wife?
Actually, we're separated.
Oh, okay.
But that being said, we are best of friends.
Yeah.
We have a phenomenal 4-year-old daughter. We are great co-parents.
Great.
And the ADHD had nothing to do with the separation, actually. We are phenomenal friends. We're like best of friends. We're great co-parents. And yes, and our daughter is awesome. She's a lot of fun. It's funny. There's a part of me that sees traits in my daughter that is definitely me, and then there's part of me that sees traits in my daughter that's definitely my her mom, and that's sort of the OCD side of things. And I look at it along the lines that I hope she gets the best of both of us.
Yes. Do you imagine you'll have more children, or do you think you'll?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think right now I love the one I have, and what do they say? The universe laughs when men make plans.
Yes. How do you make God laugh? Tell him your plans. Right. Exactly.
So I think it's probably better that I just say, as of now, not a clue.
Yeah. And moving forward, what do you envision? More books, more podcast, more?
Yeah. I mean, the podcast is growing really well, just like yours. I'm such a fan of yours.
Thank you.
The book is good. The book is great. I would love to do more. I think I'm going to experiment for the next book. I think I'm going to experiment with self-publishing. Not that I don't love my publisher, but, let's see what happens if we go out on our own. Again, that whole ADHD, why not? Let's see what happens type thing.
Sure. Do you set aside time for writing, or do you just write when you want to? Writing
is on my planes. I'm actually flying a little later today. I'm flying to Las Vegas for a speech, and that will be all writing. I already know what I'm going to write about. I have like 3 or 4 different blog posts I want to write, and a couple of other things. And the beauty of it, for me on a plane, there's nothing else to do. There's no shiny object in front of me. It's simply I'm on a plane. Right. I'm not going to walk off. There's no cat. It's internet. It's Wi-Fi in the air, which usually doesn't work anyway, so it's fine.
So that's your built-in writing office.
Yes, exactly. I am so. A plane is literally my zone of focus. No question about it.
How do you see the future how are we going to persuade the world to embrace this condition instead of pathologizing it? I mean, because there are still so many kids who get sort of put on the refuse heap and punished and stigmatized, and so many adults who aren't taking advantage of their talents because they haven't learned how to manage their fast brains.
Definitely. And the logic really goes about, the concept of it takes a village. I'm seeing, obviously everything you're doing, the things I'm trying to do. I've also been in talks. There's an organization out of California called Ride for Focus. It's a specialized organization. Specialized Bicycles has a foundation where they're putting junior high school and high school kids on bikes.
Wonderful.
And letting them ride, letting them work out before school and things like that. And that's
wonderful.
That's changing everything. And then you have, there's a study out of Texas, I'm sure you've heard of, that had took a school district, and they started giving the kids protein and things of that nature instead of 2 bowls of chocolate frosted sugar bombs every morning.
Right.
And then they increased recess from 20 minutes a day to an hour a day, and there was a 54% drop in ADHD outbursts, and more importantly, or almost as important, a 48% increase in girls speaking out and getting involved in the class.
Oh, yeah.
Huge.
Oh, enormous.
Huge.
My buddy John Ratey's book, Spark, on the influence of exercise on the brain, it's enormous. I mean, you're starting your day with that wonderful workout.
I can't not do it. And people think I'm crazy, but it works.
Yeah, no, you're not crazy at all. You're very smart. John calls exercise miracle grow for the brain. It's
so true. And not only that, but when you're ADHD, I joke, I have 2 speeds. My speeds as ADHD, my speeds are basically namaste and I'll cut a bitch. There's no middle ground there, right? And so you understand what that's like. And so
absolutely.
It's because of that there are certain things I just can't do anymore. So, I don't drink anymore because I was drinking. I wasn't drinking to get drunk, but I wouldn't have 1 drink. I'd have 6.
Right, right.
The concept of leftover pizza is not a real thing for me. So you just have to be aware of how that brain works. And exercise, to me, is now the catch-all. All the things I used to do, I had a bad day, let's have a drink or 6, is now, okay, let's go back to the gym.
Yeah. That's wonderful, Peter. So you've really learned, instead of trying to learn to do what you can't do, you've learned how to shift things into high gear in an adaptive way, and that's just wonderful. I mean, your own story is such a great lesson for people to learn from. You're such a leader in the field, and it's so terrific how open you are and spontaneous and funny. You truly are opening new ground, and I just love the work you're doing. Please keep doing it.
Thank you, Doctor. That's the goal.
Peter's website is fasterthannormal.com. His book is called Faster Than Normal: Turbocharge Your Focus, Productivity, and Success with the Secrets of the ADHD Brain. His podcast is called Faster Than Normal. It's a wonderful podcast. I'm sure you'd love to hear from people. They can reach you just by going to your website, I assume?
Yeah, by all means. My email is peter@shankman.com, and I am at Peter Shankman on all the socials. I welcome everyone to reach out.
Really do, and he responds. As you can tell by listening to him, this guy is going a mile a minute, but he really means it. He likes to connect. He's not one of these slick operators. He genuinely likes people and genuinely believes in his message, and I treasure him as he's a treasure in our world. And thank you so much for joining us on Distraction. We have to do this on a somewhat regular basis.
No question about it, Ned. I'm always an honor to be on and to talk with you.
Thank you a million, Peter. Take care and have a great trip to Las Vegas.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, that's it. Please rate and review Distraction on Apple Podcasts. A special thanks to the listener Tom from Rhode Island, who wrote, quote, "I'm an adult male with ADHD, and being able to listen to Dr. Hallowell and his guests is exactly what I need and desire. Thank you." Well, thank you, Tom from Rhode Island. We really appreciate the review, and we would love reviews from all of you. I know you're busy, but if you would take the few seconds it takes to do that, it helps us a lot. You have no idea how we live off of your feedback, so please take the time to rate us on Apple Podcasts and send in your reviews. Okay, remember to reach out to us directly with your comments and questions. Email us at connect at distractionpodcast.com. Or leave us a voicemail by calling 844-55-CONNECT. Distraction is produced by Collisions, the podcast division of CRN International. Collisions, podcasts for curious people. Our sound engineer is the brilliant Scott Pearson, and our producer is the incredibly creative Sarah Gurton.